Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Fueling NJIT Athletes. I'm your host, Ethan Caban, a Division I lacrosse player here at NJIT, and today we're diving into a topic that every student athlete needs to pay more attention to, that is nutrition. Whether you're training for your next game, grinding through a tough season, or just trying to stay energized for a full day of classes and lifts, what you eat makes a huge difference. It's more than just protein shakes and pasta. It's about how we fuel our bodies to perform, recover, and stay healthy year-round. In this episode, I've brought on two amazing guests who work behind the scenes to help us stay in top shape. That is NJIT strength and conditioning coach, Coach Culp, and our on-campus nutritionist, Samantha. They'll share what athletes often overlook when it comes to food and how to make smart choices in the dining hall and bust some of the biggest nutrition myths we've all heard floating around the locker room. We're also going to talk to you how you can build simple habits and translate into better performance on the field, in the gym, and in the classroom. So whether you're trying to bulk, stay lean, avoid injuries, or just feel better throughout the day, you'll definitely take something valuable from this. Let's get into it. First, I'm here with Coach Culp, our strength and conditioning coach at NJIT. Can you tell us your role at NJIT and the athletes you work with?
I'm an assistant strength and conditioning coach at NJIT. I've been here for 10 years now. I work with men's lacrosse, men and women's fencing, women's soccer, men's volleyball.
Perfect, thank you. And then, in your opinion, how important is nutrition when it comes to athletic performance and recovery?
Extremely. I think this is the issue that we have with a lot of our kids here at NJIT. So sleep and nutrition and hydration, something that they can control on their own, and we're trying to provide different resources for them, including the fueling station and the refueling station down in the weight room, just to get enough calories for the athletes.
Awesome. What do you typically recommend athletes eat before and after training or games?
The amount, it's hard, it's individualized, but carbs and protein before and after to help with recovery. It doesn't have to be timed that specific or that intensely. As long as you're getting enough calories in throughout the day, it should be enough.
Perfect. What are some common nutrition mistakes you see student athletes making?
Diet fads, lack of carbs. For fat loss, carbohydrates are extremely important for just being a human being, for brain function and giving you energy throughout the day. But there's so many diet fads out there on Instagram or any social media platform that provide false content. So making sure the athletes are aware that they still need carbohydrates. And the diet fads aren't really necessarily the way to go, because most diet fads are just still all about calories in versus calories out. And if you want to gain or lose weight, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Perfect. And then last question, is there a nutrition myth or trend you hear a lot of that you think is misleading?
I think just what I said.
Yeah.
Most diet fads, keto, anything you can kind of think of is really just manipulating carbohydrates in a way. Yeah. Human beings, athletes need broad range of spectrum of types of food, but carbohydrates should not be neglected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next, I'm joined by our nutritionist. Do you go by Sam or Samantha? Sam, our on-campus nutritionist who works with student athletes in the dining hall. So could you please explain to me your role here at NJIT and how you help student athletes with nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sam Kalina. I'm the campus dietitian here at NJIT with Gourmet Dining. I do lots of things here on campus for all of the staff and students, including monthly cooking classes, tabling sessions where I sample healthy food options, and then I also do some group presentations, which I oftentimes work with a lot of the athletic teams to provide sports nutrition education to the teams, and then I also offer some one-on-one nutrition counseling here for any students or staff that might be interested in a little more specific and personalized nutrition info. We can sit down one-on-one, in person or virtually, to talk through any nutrition goals that they may have.
Awesome. Thank you. So then, looking at what are some smart choices athletes can make in the dining hall to fuel themselves properly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have lots of options here in the dining hall, lots of different stations. Oftentimes when I meet with the athletic teams, I talk about creating balance plates in the dining hall. Of course, as student athletes, really want to focus our priority on getting that balance of nutrients, making sure we're getting enough carbohydrates, enough protein, and then mixing in our fruits and veggies as well. So always tell student athletes to explore the dining hall, look at all the different stations and see where they can pull options from all of those different stations. So just for example, pulling some veggies from the salad bar, using options like grilled chicken from the grill or a nice protein option from the entree line, and then pairing that with a carbohydrate, whether that's a hot option from the entree line, some rice or pasta from the pastability station, making a wrap or a sandwich over at the deli station. So lots of different options, lots of ways to make those combos in here, but really prioritizing all of our food groups and getting that good balance of nutrients.
Awesome, yes. And then, so how should athletes handle early morning workouts or late night games in terms of meals?
Yeah, this is a question I get a lot. I know that this can be super tricky, even with early morning practices, workouts, late night games, all of those things, traveling, being on the road, lots of things as student athletes where schedule can become a barrier, right, for good nutrition, for the choices that we can make. What I always recommend to my student athletes is do the best with what you have, right? Sometimes we don't have all of the options that I just named that we have in the dining hall, or maybe all the options we might have at home, but think about those food groups and what convenience options you can use to help you still hit those food groups. If we're thinking about early morning practice, workouts, games, those things, obviously you might not be having the same size of breakfast that you would on a normal day, but still trying to prioritize getting some carbs and protein in before physical activity. Maybe that looks like a protein shake, a protein smoothie, some bars. Obviously, always telling my student athletes to prioritize using the fueling station that you guys have, so grabbing some grab-and-go things from there. Same thing with late night games, right? Obviously, eating too late at night before bed might not leave you feeling the best, so your meal might not look the same as it would on a regular day, but still just prioritizing a smaller version of that meal, still getting some carbs and protein in before and after that physical activity. Just kind of adjusting as much as you can, making it a little more easier, smaller, easier to digest type of meal, but still getting a meal in, whether it's early morning or late night.
Perfect. And then, so what advice do you have for athletes who may have dietary restrictions, if that's cultural, religious, or medical?
Yeah, absolutely. Biggest piece of advice I could give, especially here at NJIT, is to meet with a dietitian, right? It definitely is going to come with some barriers, but it's nothing that we can't tackle. Just making some more conscious decisions, making sure that you're checking in with the chefs, with if there is a dietitian on staff where you are, like we do have here, asking questions, right? Making sure that you're aware of what's going into the food, how it's being prepared. In just about almost all food service facilities, there's someone who is designated to be able to answer those questions to make sure that guests can safely, consume the food regardless of what restrictions they may have. But it's always nice to have someone on board that can work with you a little one-on-one, talk about how to navigate those restrictions. I will say here at NJIT, if it does come down to food allergies, we do have our Delicious Without station, so that's always a nice option. And then for other things like cultural and religious reasons or other just medical reasons that you have some dietary restrictions or intolerances, definitely just checking in with our team, making an appointment with myself. We can definitely navigate how we can best help you out with meals in the dining hall.
Awesome. So then, what are some easy wins for athletes when it comes to improving their eating habits?
Every small step is a small win, right? So I always tell everyone, when we think about nutrition, we don't want to try and tackle everything at once. We don't want to try and change everything we're doing all at once. So making small changes, whether that's adding a vegetable to a meal that you don't typically have, whether it's looking at your plate and looking at that balance of carb and protein and adding a little bit more carb to make sure you're fueling up enough for games. Whether it's changing your on-the-road snack that you bring with you for the bus, pre-game, post-game snacks, right? Little things make a huge difference. I think biggest thing I hear with my student athletes is when you make those small changes and you feel the effects, right? You feel your performance change, you feel your progress change, you feel your recovery change. It helps us. It's motivating. It's, it feels like a big win, right? Those small changes oftentimes do lead to big wins. So making just little changes, reassessing what we're already doing, making just small changes at a time, overall changes the big picture when it comes to nutrition.
Yes. And then are there any common misconceptions you hear from students about nutrition?
Too many to list. Lots of different misconceptions out there. Unfortunately, in today's world where media has kind of taken over lots of things. We see lots of fad diets out in the world. We see lots of misinformation on things to avoid. I could keep you here forever if we talked about the seed oil debate and keto diets and all the things. Unfortunately, there will always be nutrition misconceptions out there. I tell all of my students, all of my clients, take everything that you see online with a grain of salt. Try your best to look for credible information that comes from scientists, doctors, and especially registered dietitians. Unfortunately, the only way to really navigate those misconceptions is to speak with a professional, or like I said, find some good, credible evidence that's coming from a professional. But I will just say, biggest misconceptions I see here on campus are things like, needing to cut out entire food groups. Like I said, some of these things like the seed oil debate and things that we're seeing online. A lot of those things. Nutrition is pretty simple, but some people out there like to make it pretty difficult, pretty intricate. It's a pretty easy science to figure out. So like I said, lots of things will always be out there in the media. Consulting a professional is the best way to navigate not falling into any of those misconception traps.
Perfect, yes. And then lastly here, if there was one habit you wish every student athlete had, what would it be?
Ooh, this is a good one. As far as nutrition?
Yeah, as nutrition.
I would definitely say really just focusing on balance. I think for the most part, a lot of my student athletes are pretty aware of nutrition. They're pretty aware of what they're having, what they're not having, right? I think most of you will come to me and say, I know what I got to add to my plate.
Yeah.
But I really think the biggest thing to hone in on is just that balance, right? Knowing that it's totally fine. When you're on the road, I have a lot of student athletes coming to me saying, we're on the road, we're eating big pasta meals, we're eating fast food. That's going to happen, right? But how can you balance that out? What can you add to those meals? Or what can you have as snacks to make sure you're still hitting all your food groups throughout the day? Same thing here in GDS, right? When you're building those plates, just really always thinking about balance, making sure you're getting all of your food groups. Nutrition is not a perfect science for anyone, student athletes, children, adults, for none of us, right? And every day is going to look different. But if we can come back to those basics and just focus on the food groups, focus on balance at all of our meals, we're all going to put ourselves in a much better place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That gave us a better understanding of how to eat better right here on campus. Thank you. Once again, a big thank you to both Coach Culp and Samantha for sharing their time and knowledge with me. Here's some of my favorite takeaways from today. Fueling isn't optional, it's essential. What we eat before and after workouts directly affects how we perform and recover. The dining hall can be your ally. You just need to know how to build a smart plate. Even if you got restrictions, gluten-free, vegan, halal, or anything else, there are always ways to eat for performance. For me personally, I'll be putting more effort into planning my meals and staying consistent, especially around practice and game days. I hope today's episode gave you something to think about, whether you're a student athlete, coach, or just someone trying to eat better. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to share it with your teammates or a coach. And don't forget to follow for more episodes of Fueling NJIT Athletes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.